A democratic government runs on news. The way we get our news in this country has changed, though. The internet has made news more available, but perhaps less valuable. As print newspapers continue to lose readership at a startling rate and television news consumption is flatlined, creative media entrepreneurs are using the web to bring the news to the public online. Rebecca Zepick is the proprietor of State of the State Kansas, a statewide news service that fits this new entrepreneurial spirit. We're talking how the business of news impacts the life of a nation. Today on Talking Democracy. Welcome to Talking Democracy. Rebecca Zepick from State of the State, Kansas, joined me today. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Chapman.
A lot of people don't probably know about State of the State, Kansas. Tell me a little bit about your site and what you do.
Sure. Well, you know, I think it helps to kind of make sense of it to step back a little bit about what I did before I started State of the State.
Absolutely.
You know, I was working on the McCain campaign in the national communications team, and it was my job to book sort of spokespeople or people who endorsed McCain into local TV markets, into newspapers and radio. And what I would do is I'd call into these newsrooms and ask for the political reporter. And I, for the most part, got laughter on the other end of the phone, with the exception of maybe some newspapers. But in TV stations, I realized quickly there was no such thing as a political reporter anymore. And often it was usually a 22-year-old or young reporter right out of college was sent over to interview my guys. And my guys were so loaded with talking points, they were ready for CNN, the biggest thing that we could throw at them, that they almost turned the little news stories into commercials. And I remember thinking, that's great for our campaign, but it's terrible for the general public's knowledge of an issue. And so when the McCain campaign was done, I came back to Wichita and I took a broadcast journalism course, and I wanted to create something that would be like a CNN for Kansas, or something that would help cover our state house and our elections in a way that would be, accessible, enjoyable, but at the same time let you know who's up there doing that stuff, because that was the other thing I discovered too, was the coverage of the State House is terrible with broadcast news. Newspapers have done a really good job, and they've held the fort down even though it was expensive, but broadcast disappeared, and they show up for the big stories. And so when I did come back, I moved up to Topeka for the legislative session, and I was the only broadcast reporter there. I took a TV camera and some editing equipment, and literally it was like hitting a gold mine, because in a weird way, it was like, oh, this is part of who we are as Kansans, but you don't see that. Like, I bet most Kansans couldn't tell you who the Senate president is, or the House, majority leader or minority leader. And these are people that are making really important decisions about our lives. And
especially these last couple of years, more attention than in a long time has been paid to the State House.
Yeah, and so, and these guys also wanted to help their constituency understand it. Now, obviously, they had a position they wanted to advocate, but that's okay as long as they were clearly identified as Republican, Democrat, lobbyist, whatever. And so I kind of created something that originally I kind of coined it as a CNN meets PBS for Kansas. And it's sort of, evolved over the course of a year, and we've been about a year out, we're a little over. And that's kind of what it's turned into, is what it's evolving into, a headline news of what's happened on the campaign trail and at the State House.
Fantastic. So people can go and tell us what the website is.
The website is actually stateofthestateks.com.
And so you've been in operation for a year. You've been really at the forefront of a lot of coverage, as you'd mentioned, TV reportage. There's not a lot of that covering the State House. And even the newspapers that had been holding down the fort, so to speak, have been rolling back their coverage. Is it basically you and John Hanna, the Associated Press, covering the State House now, or are there still some other remnants of the old news coverage there?
There really are, and I was really lucky that there was a community still intact there. The Kansas City Star has a reporter there. The Lawrence Journal-World does. The Topeka Capital Journal had 2 reporters there. The Wichita Eagle had 1, sometimes 2, I think. The Kansas City Star and the Wichita Eagle, I think, are owned by the same parent company. I could be wrong. And then the Martin Haver is a long-time sort of fixture at the State House. I think I've got everybody. And the NPR reporter was still there. And so I had all these print reporters and a radio guy, and all of them were really welcoming because they saw a young reporter who was trying to do something that they understood the other TV stations had sort of moved on long ago.
Very good. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Talking Democracy.
Fairness and following the rules of the game while having a positive attitude and a striving spirit, along with grace in losing. Showing off, roughhousing, or even trash talking are all traits of bad sportsmanship. Trouble.
In your face, booyah!
Whether you're at home or on the field. When you have a bad attitude, it can bring others down. But with encouragement,
Oh, good try.
it leads to a fun-filled atmosphere. Good sportsmanship reflects on who you are.
Good sportsmanship is playing the game the way it was intended to be played with dignity and respect for everyone involved. Sportsmanship is part